Greetings, friends, and welcome back to the Musings from the Mountain podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Carenza. In this episode, Michael Lindfield and I tackle a concept that's central to spiritual growth, yet often misunderstood: the practice of relinquishing. The paradox that sets a tone for our conversation is the idea that you can often hold more sand with an open hand than a closed fist. Through this concept, we explore what it means to create space for your true nature to emerge, why relationships are often the toughest testing ground, and how mental attachments can be the hardest things to release. So whether you're facing major life transitions or simply feeling called to send the superfluous away, join us on this journey as we learn how to let go of what no longer serves us. And if you enjoy this episode, please consider going to meditationmount.org and donating. Your donation helps us to bring you this podcast, as well as all the other programs the Mount produces, both today and in the future. We are incredibly grateful and honored by your support. Now back to the podcast and letting go. In thinking about this episode and how to start it off and how to contextualize it, I keep going back to the adage or the old saying that, you can hold more sand with an open hand than a closed fist. And I feel that kind of is a good place to go in, because in reading about this and discussing it, you realize that the idea of relinquishing, the idea of renunciation, these kind of go hand in hand. Well, for one, that can cause a lot of cognitive dissonance, because it's the divorcing of the relinquishing of the ego, the personality, and then identifying with the soul. That can be kind of a rocky road.
And it's also a relinquishing of any crutches that we may be using.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's...
spiritual aids.
That's right. And that also takes many forms, including maybe the dogmatic form of a particular religion or ethos, or... those are big crutches too.
They are, and we want to look at this because the whole thing of relinquishing and letting go, relinquish actually comes from the original Latin to leave behind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's a Middle English that is, the derivation is from Latin, to leave behind. And when you leave something behind, you don't pick it up again.
Yeah.
You're done with it. It's like with a snake sheds its skin.
Right.
And I believe that relinquishing is the intentional shedding of something. But when I was thinking this morning about a snake, and we're in the year of the snake in 2025, when I was thinking of a snake shedding its skin, the new skin's underneath it. It doesn't have to go out and buy a new skin and put it on. It's underneath, waiting there to be revealed. So the relinquishing is creating a space so an open hand can hold more sand.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that idea. The skin's already in place. It's already ready to be revealed.
Which is what we've touched on a couple of times, Joy. And this, spoiler alert. Okay, spoiler alert. The kingdom of heaven is within.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And therefore, everything is a removal of that which is the not self, a removal of that which is, if you like, clouding the sky, blocking the light of the inner sun from being radiantly revealed through our lives. And so relinquishing can be the sackcloth and ashes route. I leave everything and I give up everything and I go and I put on sackcloth and ashes. I'm thinking of St. Francis, who was an amazing life. When you think of St. Francis growing up in a very privileged family, a lot of riches, a lot of partying, and then he suddenly gets this inner call. And it's like an addiction. He has to go cold turkey. And so he then relinquishes or renounces, as you said, renounces everything worldly in order to find God. And at that time, God was, if you like, my understanding of St. Francis. I've followed his life as much as I can. Every time I go to Italy, I like to go to Assisi. His amazing inspiration for a pretty hard line. A life of relinquishing. But his thing was to let go of everything worldly so that God could enter him. Oh Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. but it was still the God outside coming in. So he had to empty himself, get rid of everything that would detract from the glory of God from being in his life. What we are now, I believe, witnessing is not just God transcendent, the God outside, the omnipotent, the one everywhere God, but the God within, the original light of the Christos within the heart of every atom. And it's the revelation of that light. It's the unfolding of the evolutionary process that allows the light of the atom to eventually be revealed. And in order to create the space for that light to emerge, there's a lot of relinquishing that has to happen, Joey. That's my sense. So you gave some thought to relinquishing as well. So what did you come up with coming into this episode?
I kind of mentioned it before, but for me, the idea of the cognitive dissonance that comes along with what we're going to go over the text a little bit, but kind of to give it kind of a preview, it brings up the fact that if you so choose to go down the path of discipleship, or you're what we would call now is just following the spiritual path, knowing thyself, the development of mindfulness, and then you start to relinquish your attachment to form. And the way that starts to look is, you really have to let go of your attachment to outcome, your attachment. You identify more with the internal soul than the exterior. And that can cause a real problem if you're too, as Michael said earlier with the idea of crutches, if you're too wrapped up in any particular kind of political, philosophical, religious, any kind of dogma, including the very books that we're reading from.
Well, see, this is the wonderful thing. We're going to be reading from a compilation of the teachings from the Master DK that Alice Bailey wrote down, and they've been compiled in this book called Ponder on This. And in one of the earlier books, DK said, 2025 and after, there'll be a whole new dispensation of teaching. And in fact, the new teaching may even appear to contradict what I've said. But it doesn't, because nothing can contradict the truth.
Right.
But
it's another it's another layer. It's like going from the 12 pack of crayons to the 64 pack.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is how we've been doing this in previous episodes when we're using this book. We'll read a couple of sentences or a paragraph. We'll figure out what does it mean to us now, rather than what's my mental understanding of it, but how does it resonate with me? What does it call forth? What does it stimulate? Because that's really what it is. We're talking about the spiritual journey as a living quest. The quest is the question. So we are on a journey of inquiry together, and the answer has to be a living answer. It can't be a dead letter answer, which is one of the things that they talk about in the spiritual teachings, particularly Agni Yoga, is that if you're not careful, all the old texts and scriptures, the sacred writings, become dead letter because they are no longer alive. And our job is to make the word flesh, the living word. That's not just a Christian term, but it really is the whole notion of revelation is embodiment in time, space, and substance of the inner truth. And in order to get the stuff out of the way that's in the way, we go through this process of relinquishing. So is there anything else you want to say before we dive in?
Let's jump right in,
Okay. The soul must relinquish the personality. For ages, the soul has identified itself with the lower personal self, and through the agency of that lower self has gained experience and acquired much knowledge. The time has come when that agency is, quote unquote, no longer dear to the soul, and their respective positions are reversed. No longer is the soul identified with the personality, but the personality becomes identified with the soul and loses its separate quality and position. So the relinquishing of the self is not looking at the personality as something bad. It's just saying there is a more evolved aspect of ourselves where the light that lives at the heart of all things has gone through a greater process of revelation. The soul reveals more of the light of truth of who we are than our personality does. And yet it is the destiny of our personality to be infused by that greater light and to be the transmitter of that greater light. But in order to switch roles, we are not a personality seeking the soul. We are a soul seeking to fashion a personality through which it can transmit its light, its love, its beauty, its wisdom. And so it turns it around, because otherwise it can sound as though you've got the personality, you've got to beat yourself up. It's, people walking around whipping themselves, dressed in sackcloth and ashes. It's not. It's basically saying, I will always be governed by a higher frequency, the latest update, the latest version of the truth that lives in me. And for the moment, it's the soul that carries that latest version of the truth. And the personality is seeking an upgrade so that it can join with the soul. And that's where I think when it says relinquish the personality, it doesn't mean, just be uncaring to it or not appreciate it as a divine manifestation. But it's saying it's not in charge. It's not calling the shots. As it says, it's no longer dear.
Yeah.
It's a friend, but it's an aspect of ourself that we are still fashioning to vibrate at the same frequency as the most evolved aspect of ourself, which at the moment is called the soul. So, all that has been acquired through age-long struggle and strife, through pain and pleasure, through disaster and satisfied desire, and all that the wheel of life which has turned ceaselessly has brought into the possession of the soul, all, italicize, all has to be relinquished. Life for the disciple becomes then a series of detaching processes until he or she has learned the lesson of renunciation. And this is where it's sort of counterintuitive. The way to be more of who you are is to let go of some of the stuff that you believe yourself to be. And in fact, I was pondering this morning, and I wrote down this paragraph because it took me a while to sort of land this. This is what I wrote: the relinquishing the image of the self, and this is the prelude into stepping into the livingness of the self. So we have to remove an image of who we are and dare to live the truth of who we are. And therefore, we become, if you like, an embodiment of the inner light. And the embodiment of the inner light is the revelation of that inner truth. And that inner truth, if we go back to some of the things we've talked about before, at the heart of the atom, at the heart of the solar system, at the heart of everything, is the light of love, which they call the light of Christos. And this predates Christianity. This goes back to the beginning of time. This is the light that lives inside the heart of every atom. And when it's released, it releases the energy of life. It releases love. It releases the truth of who we are. And when this is fully released, we stand revealed as that Christed person, that being. Every atom. And that's what it means to be a sacred planet. When the earth becomes a sacred planet, it stands revealed in the firmament as a radiant sun. It shifts from a planet to a sun. And so the relinquishing is letting go in order for something to emerge from the inside out. It's not denial. For me, there's a big difference between renunciation and denial, having to deny myself something.
Mm. That's a really good distinction. Yeah, because even that you get caught up in the words, putting the labels on it, and that's it's I was just having this image of like the sun eating its children, like
Right.
or you rather, but the way to look at it is it's a database absorbing more data, so.
And for me, denial denial can be a denial. I deny the truth that you hold, and because I hold
Yeah.
on to my truth. But the other denial is saying that it's not me. I will deny it. I will not let it have access to me. Renunciation is a conscious letting go to create that space of grace in which the inner truth has this field of nurturing in which to be born. You're creating, if you like, a field, a maternal field, a fecund field, a space where the light of truth can be born. And we go back to the crisis on the planet at the moment. And we've talked about this in spiritual terms, Joey, that what humanity is facing now is the run-up to the first initiation. And the first initiation is the big test to see if we can understand that human beings cannot live by bread alone, by material nourishment. So there is a deeper level of nourishment that satisfies the deep hunger of our soul. Now that's being played out because the food that we're feeding ourselves at the moment is based on, it's a material-based diet. It's money, it's things, it's possessions, it's beliefs, it's everything. And can we relinquish those and open the heart? So you talk about opening the hand to hold more sand. I would say it's not just opening the hand, it's opening the heart to not just receive more love, but to transmit more love. And this is the difference. We don't just open the heart to receive. We open the heart so that love that lives inside us, that has not yet had the ability to shine and touch others and be touched by others, can do so. So relinquishing for me is this amazing process of clearing a space for love, for the emergence of love, which is very different from, I'm going to deny myself this. Although you and I know that there are times when you have to say, no, I'm not going to have this, because that will just reactivate an old pattern that I've let go of. And so you have to become a hard taskmaster sometimes when the pattern is still rearing its head and say, yeah, give me another fix.
That's right.
And then the will says, no, that's not our choice. The deep choice that we've made eons ago is to reveal the light and love that lives at the heart of our true being, our true nature. And that's going to take lifetimes and lifetimes. And there comes a point when you realize, oh, this is what's happening now. I'm not the victim of anything. All the stuff that's happening in the world and happening to me is to show me what we and I need to let go of in order to create a gracious space in which love can blossom. I mean that's sort of prosaic, poetic language, but for me, that's as close as I can get to what I sense wanting to happen inside each of us.
Yeah, that's powerful. I really enjoyed that, and just the idea that even when you're opening yourself up for more love, and like you realize it's not picking and choosing. It's just an all encompassing love. It's literally the energy of the universe.
Unconditional love, which doesn't mean you don't have discernment. and know how to apportion that love or
Yeah.
give that love. It's just like you can overwater a plant.
Yeah, that's true.
I've seen plants die and rot
Yeah.
because they're given more than they can handle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I something you always said earlier, many times is, you support the person and not the pattern.
Exactly.
And I think that's where that discernment comes in.
Well, what we're doing now with relinquishing, we're supporting our true personage
Mm-hmm.
and not our patterns.
Yeah,
We're letting go of the stuff that supports the patterns.
that's right.
Big difference.
Big difference. Yeah, and very timely. There's a lot to be, there's a landmine of things of which we identify with that are coming up for inspection. And it's not always going to go the way you think it is. It's not always going to go the way you think it should go, But now it's the great revealing and the great relinquishing.
Well, and also you can look at relinquishing as disidentification.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I disidentify with something, it no longer holds my attention, no longer holds my focus of thought.
Yeah.
Energy follows thought. Therefore, I take away energy from it. I unplug it from the matrix, and it withers on the vine because I'm not giving it any energy.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you try to fight and wrestle with some of these things, the more you give them energy.
Yeah.
So relinquishing, letting go, leaving them behind, it doesn't mean angrily or just with a sense of ill will, but I leave them behind because they no longer serve my destiny or life's destiny as it seeks to work out through me. And I go back to the spoiler alert. The spoiler alert is love lives inside every atom of our being, and the whole process and purpose of evolution is the release of the light of love within every atom of creation. That's my current dogmatic understanding of it, and I'm willing to relinquish that right now.
Yeah. Okay.
as a belief.
Mm-hmm.
But the deep knowing, and I think listening to all the sages and all the teachings from way back, it is that the kingdom of heaven lives within. The light lives at the heart of the atom. We've talked about this. Matter is called black light. And the way you release the light is to raise its frequency. That's the whole mystery of earth that we've touched on so many times, of the mystery of the crucifixion of light and the mystery of the resurrection of light. We're not talking about the death of a certain person called Jesus. We're talking about the light that's locked at the heart of matter, that from the outside, it's dark, you can't see it. And how do you stimulate that inner light to make it radioactive, actively radiant?
Yeah. Yeah.
Radioactive, actively radiant.
Hmm.
So a radioactive person is a saint who is actively radiant.
Yeah.
So how do you release that light? Well, we're told once again, the secret is love, unconditional love.
Yeah.
And I believe that the whole process of relinquishing is creating the conditions for that love to emerge.
Yeah.
So what else does this stir in you? We've only just done a couple of sentences, shall we?
Yeah. I mean, we barely scratched the surface, but this is the big ask, I think, sometimes for people. The disidentification process for me was having to start to rebuild a life from scratch, and realizing that if I was going to do this, I was going to have to get rid of everything that didn't work, and that was pretty much everything. So that really did, that it's like shaking the Etch-a-Sketch up and starting fresh, and really, not everyone can do that in this lifetime,
Right.
So it's but it is required. I think it's something that it's the next step.
And relinquishing is not some intellectual pursuit.
No. Yeah.
I mean, the paragraph that we're going to read now
Yeah.
touches home.
Right.
It touches home on family, on friends, on it looks at really as what is our real relationship and our true relationship with life and with the forms of life. So let's read the next paragraph, and it will surface, I'm sure, a lot of things. The soul has also most definitely to relinquish its tie with other personal selves. It must learn to know and to meet other people only on the plane of the soul. In this lies for many a disciple a hard lesson. They may care little for themselves and may have learnt much personal detachment. Little may they cherish the gain of contact with the lower personal self. They are learning to transcend all that and may have transcended to a great degree, but their love for their children, their family, their friends, and intimates is for them of supreme importance, and that love holds them prisoners in the lower worlds. They do not stop to recognize that their love is primarily love for the personalities and only secondary for the souls. Upon this rock, many disciples are for lives broken until the time comes when, through pain and suffering and the constant losing of that which they so much cherish, their love enters into a newer and higher and truer phase. They rise above the personal and find again, after felt loss and suffering, those whom now they love as souls. Then they realize that there has been gain and not loss, and that only that which was illusory, ephemeral, and untrue has disappeared. The real person has been gained and can never be lost again. That's a doozy of a paragraph.
That is one of the heaviest. I mean, that right there.
It's a lifetime.
Yeah, that's a lifetime right there. That whole paragraph right there just deserves to be,
So how do you unpack that one, Joy, through your experience?
Well, I mean, the thing that is really important to distinguish is it's not saying, you're not going to love your children. You're not going to love, you're not. It's this this disidentification of them as the outer form, and that they are a soul, just like you, and that's difficult. That's a tough ask for a lot of people. I mean, this is like it says here. This is where it all falls apart for many people on this path.
It isn't though you turn your back on on these souls.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you unhook yourself from the binding relationship of personality to personality, even though these two personalities may love each other dearly and not find fault in each other.
Yeah,
but still, it's a prison.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is the most difficult one, because breaking free can sometimes appear cruel. And if I don't do it skillfully, it causes temporary harm. I've been through this myself. A very painful situation where, my daughter basically said, "So you're choosing the work over your family?" And I said, "My love for you has not diminished one iota. It never will. And yes, if you put it that way, yes, if you put it that way." But it wasn't choosing one over another. It was responding to a call that had me move through a certain process. I'm not saying it was right or wrong, but it was an irresistible call, Joey. And when you have an irresistible call, you've got to follow it. Addiction is an irresistible call from the lower frequencies.
That's right.
We know that.
Yeah.
We've been there. The soul puts out a magnetic appeal. That magnetism is so strong, it is irresistible.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's one of those lessons that, it's a call to adventure, because it's like you have to go through that so that you can learn how to get rid of it. But you may find yourself, the boat may hit the rocks,
Well, and then it says in the end, then they realize that there has been gain and not loss.
That's right.
The real person has been gained and can never be lost again.
That's a beautiful line, and one that I found myself in that process.
Well, you lost everything.
Yeah, absolutely. But it turns out nothing was lost; everything was gained, because I gained myself. I got to finally get to know and know thyself and be thyself. In a way that was simply just not possible, having not gone through that.
I think what is so clear for so-called spiritual seekers and students now, this is not if you like, a correspondence course on life.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's just a crazy concept to think about. To think that you're going through life like it's a correspondence course, but I think that's the general default setting for most people.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize it's not like you said, "Oh, I'm gonna do this correspondence course," but that's a very profound synopsis of modern life.
Yeah. So our lives correspond to the lessons we need to learn for the soul to fully embrace us.
Yeah.
So relinquishing is not placing ourselves out into the wilderness where we're going to live a lonely and cold life. It's relinquishing that which is not allowing the space to emerge inside of us in which the light of love can give birth to the truth of who we are. We go back to this principle here at Meditation Mount, essential divinity. Well, it's not so much a belief. It's if you could say it's a belief, but it's our understanding that this principle is primary, that every act of the Creator produces a creature, a creation, and therefore a spark of the Creator must live inside the creation, inside the creature, because it is made in the image and likeness. It's an expression of the one. So the many are the many expressions of the one, the fractals of the one life. So you and I are never cut off from truth. Truth has to be reborn in us as a lived experience. And that's why the teaching nowadays cannot be an unembodied imparting of knowledge. We are helping each other live into the truth, live out the truth, live as the truth, rather than fill ourselves with what we believe the truth to be. And then we get into sort of fist fights with others about, no, my truth is better than your truth. Let's arm wrestle for it.
Yeah. And that's where things get tricky. But,
They do.
Yeah.
So, are you ready to take the next paragraph?
Yeah, that's
It's a shorter one, but it's still loaded. We're talking about letting go of our personality attachments. And then you realize once you let them go, when you reunite with your dear ones, if you like, at the true level of connection, then the love there is a deeper love because it's a soul love. Then it says, this is most frequently the problem of parents who are upon the path of discipleship. And it is through their children that the lesson is learnt, which can release them for initiation. They hold their children to them, and this, being counter to the law of nature, works out disastrously. It is the height of selfishness. And yet, did they but know and see aright, they would realize that to hold, one must detach, and to keep, one must release. Such is the law. This is a powerful one. Other words are used. It's like you rise by kneeling.
Yeah, this is the sort of the universal cosmic esoteric rub.
It is. It's like to hold, one must attach. To keep, one must release.
Yeah.
In order to have something, I have to let go of my sense of owning it. I allow it to be myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's that thing. If you love someone, set them free. I mean, like, yeah, if you see the Buddha on the road, like,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, on a practical standpoint, though, this is something that I see. I definitely saw it in my family where parents could not make the transition from when a child makes the transition from child to adulthood. They just couldn't. They were never able to accept the person as an adult, as a free, functioning, autonomous being.
Well, we don't have in our Western culture at the moment rites of passage that correspond to these passages of the soul. It's unfolding in its different phases.
Yeah.
Other traditions understand that at a certain time, you've moved from perfecting or incarnating into your physical and your emotional, your mental, and then at some point you step into your adulthood. And that adulthood is stepping into your maturity as a time of integration. It's a time when you embrace the new. You're ready to welcome the inner truth of who you are, because that's what adulthood means. Adulthood really is acting as the soul.
Yeah. It should be.
It should be.
Yeah.
And nothing to do with age.
Yeah.
Let's take the next sentence. The soul has also to learn to relinquish the fruits or gains of service and learn to serve without attachment to results, to means, to persons, or to praise.
Yeah, that sort of dovetails into that 3-part we just did on service.
Yeah.
It's all relinquishing. It's all about relinquishing.
But if relinquishing doesn't mean it's bad and I got to let go of it. It just means that the soul does not need any external affirmation of its worth.
Yeah.
My personality does occasionally.
Yeah.
I need somebody to say, hey, you're really doing well, Michael. You're great.
Yeah.
You're great.
Yeah.
The soul simply is doing its thing. It's radiating. It does not need any external affirmation for its beingness. And that's where we're moving to.
Yeah.
So when the light of love is revealed and burns inside of us and is transmitted, we don't need to take from the outside to bolster our sense of who we are. We are here in giving.
Yeah.
We're primed for giving.
That's right. I mean, it's another one of those things where it's super simple, but it's not necessarily easy.
Well, it's super simple because on a mental level, but then if I still have not practiced this, there's a gap between what it means and my ability to feel it in my bones and my blood.
Yeah. Another map is not the territory. It's like, okay, go relinquish this stuff. But, and theoretically you can say, oh, I can see how that'd be really useful, but it's not until you've been through it. And people can tell if it's not really something that you can fake. Because once you've been through it, you can spot another person who has, and it's easy to see everyone who hasn't.
Right. Okay. These sort of get more intense, these paragraphs.
Yeah,
the next one, the soul has to relinquish also the sense of responsibility for that which other disciples may do. I mean, yeah, mind your own business.
Oof.
The relation between disciples is egoic and not personal. Egoic means egoism. Egoic means the ego with a big E, the higher self. Because disciples are connected at the deep plane that has said yes to life. Well, the plane that is a yes to life.
Right.
And the personality then chooses to be the yes. But we already are the yes.
Yeah.
The soul is the yes to life. And then we make a shift in our lives when we consciously say, I choose, I say yes. May the soul govern. So the relationship between disciples is egoic and not personal. The link is of the soul and not of the mind. Each personality pursues its own course, must shoulder its own responsibilities, work out its own dharma, and fulfill its own karma, and so answer for itself to its Lord and Master, the soul. And answers there will be. This is a tricky one.
Yeah, it is.
Because, we talk about when is it right to intervene and when does intervention become interference?
Right. Yeah, because, if you think about it, sometimes you have to let the kid go for the first time on the bike with no training wheels. They're going to fall, but you have to let go of that bike.
Or touch the hot stove.
Oh, yeah.
Woo.
Yeah, that's a tough thing, and especially in the in this context, when they're talking about, relinquishing responsibility for other disciples, that's like one of the favorite things for the esoteric community to do is to police other disciples.
Absolutely. And say, you're out of line. You're out of line with the teaching.
It seems like that's the primary function of many people. But so, that's my personal observation,
it's my personal experience.
Yes. That's not in the text.
But I think we're really getting to the nub of it now, where the teaching has brought us to a certain point. And we've quoted Agni Yoga. Agni Yoga is a compilation or a putting together of an understanding and a transmission of an understanding of Agni, which is the highest fire of life. So Agni Yoga is the yoga of fire, the yoga of life. I don't believe in Agni Yoga. I believe that Agni lives at the heart of everything. This is the light of Christos that lives at the heart of every atom. This is Agni. So I don't identify as a follower of Agni Yoga, although I use Agni Yoga to stimulate my understanding and resonance with Agni, which is fire. And recently, I actually read a page or two of Agni Yoga every morning. Not because it's my religious text, but because it stimulates me in a new way, in a different way, because it's always telling me to let go. It's a great one at relinquishing, and it offers everything into the fire.
Yeah,
you have to put everything in the fire so it can be burned up, so that you can raise yourself to a frequency that can receive the highest fire. And there was a particular sloka or paragraph last week I read that it said, look, anytime you're in a desperate situation or facing death, there's only one word you need to say: Agni. Agni calls in that fire, and that fire is synonymous with love, with light, with truth. So it's a reminder to go back to center. So when in trouble, where do you go for refuge? You don't hide away under a rock. You stand in the truth of who you are, which is fire, the highest fire, Agni, the monadic fire. So for me, that's the distinction I've made. And I, many years ago, became, quote unquote, a Buddhist. I took vows. And for me, Buddhism is not a religion. It's a practice. And so I can follow something because it's leading me to what I'm called to be. It's not leading me into a place where I have to believe what somebody else has said is true. And I guess that is the hardest relinquishing of all. And this is what the Tibetan says. He says, one thing to let go of your physical objects. You can give away your clothes, you can give away money, you can give away that. It feels good to give to people that need, and I don't need all this stuff. Give it away. Let go of emotions, emotional attachment. It's a little tougher. There's a little bit of Velcro and stickiness and on letting go. The most difficult thing to let go of is our mental attachments.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Because we are focused in the mind. This is what we're developing, this particular go-round of civilization. We're perfecting the mind. But the mind, when it focuses on something, that something becomes the reality. Not a facsimile of the reality, but for us, the reality, which is where dogma and fanaticism come in. When we perceive an aspect of truth, we allow it to solidify and condense as the truth. When the A becomes the, you've got problems. And therefore, and I go back to the Tibetan, he said, the most difficult thing facing humanity in the coming years, and it will be the years now, is mental warfare. He says, one thing to have physical warfare and emotional fights. Mental warfare is so insidious, it's very hard to know what's true and what's not true, and to detach yourself from the falsehoods everywhere.
I mean, that's 100% what we're going through now.
What's happening on the planet right now, Joey?
It's absolute, almost Atlantean level warfare. because no one knows really what's true. Everything is it's like, even if you think that you're approaching something from first principles, first perspective, it's very easy from someone else to say, well, did you consider this? Or what layer is this? Or where did this information come from? And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, wow, like I mean, it's a very it's I think maybe more difficult than ever to get to first principles.
Well, you just kicked the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
And you can get stung.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What the key to this first initiation of overcoming this need for just material sustenance, the key, it says, when the presence of a greater love, this eternal Christos, is born within the cave of the human heart. So there's the key for me. It's the opening of the heart, just as you said in the beginning. An open hand holds more sand. An open heart receives and gives more love.
Yeah.
And therefore, it can hold the differences in a synthetic way. Unconditional love can hold everything and see it for what it is. So the heart holds and understands everything. The mind chooses and decides what is. And sometimes that is in opposition to what somebody else has chosen to believe what is true and what is. And mental warfare is a tough one to get out of.
Yeah.
So that's why the heart is so key. So we're relinquishing in order to have a more open heart. I mean, we've covered quite a bit today, and I'm wondering, Joey, do we have time for another sentence or two, or how do you?
Yeah,
this is coming to a point where it may be a 2, or could even be another 3.
Yeah,
a 3-part series.
I think that's a good idea, because this is a lot to contemplate, and it's really the hardest thing to contemplate. I mean, it is as someone who is on the path. I mean, and I'm surrounded by other people who are on the spiritual path. It's the hardest thing that everyone struggles with. You know, I mean, it's because it's so tangible. Like trying to do the calculus of what's the best thing. What's like, how are you emotionally involved? Are you love this, or what's, you know, even in the sense of an organization. You know, how do I feel that I'm really right about this thing, but how do I express that in a way that's positive? Or why do I think I'm right about this? Or, you know, like,
and it's a very tricky place to stand. Here at Meditation Mount, we've been given an assignment, it was founded upon an assignment that Roberto Assagioli took on, and it's to promote these principles of essential divinity, goodwill, unanimity, and the pathways that lead to them, and the power of creative meditation, the power of focused thought, and the harnessing of the compassionate heart to actually create the spiritual architecture of the future. So there is something that we can begin to build on the inside, and then it reaches a point of precipitation, then it shows up on the outside. Now that is our assignment. We're not here to convince people to believe in anything. We invite them to consider that each person, is a divine being in the process of emergence. And the lifeblood that flows through the body of our one humanity is love. And that our humanity is not separate. It's part of an interdependent web of life, unanimity. So it's a very tricky thing, because if you're not careful, we could proselytize here. And so how do we share our field notes, our understanding, still keep true to our mission and not downplay it? Because the ultimate reason this mission is here is that without the sowing of the new seeds, a new civilization cannot be born. If you just harvest and don't sow next year, you're not going to get another harvest. So you harvest and you sow.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that we have to look at. What do we relinquish? And what we have let go of and are in the process of is the heritage, the lineage that we're part of, is a thread of truth that has been clothed in certain words and meaning, but that's the packaging of the truth. the truth is the truth is the truth. As we said before, the ageless wisdom teaching is this timeless stream of truth that is at each age appropriated, fashioned, and offered in a way and in a form that can be of most use at this time. I believe in 2025, we're at a turning point where it's like the Etch-a-Sketch, something's been shaken up. The truth doesn't disappear, but it's being asked to be revealed in a new way. And we're still seeking to find out how to reveal that. And I think where we've come is it's not by teaching, it's by creating a field of livingness, of beingness together, a place of demonstration. And that's it. But without the relinquishing, without the shedding of the skin of the snake, the new can't be revealed. So for me, relinquishing is the intentional shedding of old skins. And I believe this is the time to shed some old skins, Joey.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. That was
Thanks,
beautiful.
Joey.